believed in ghosts.
Okay, I'm here with Colin Krawchuk, and we're talking about The Jester. I watched this today, as a matter of fact, and
Really?
yeah, I absolutely loved it. I loved how it was how to put this, it was really tense. The Jester himself was really wicked looking, and like I loved how the story progressed and how everything all comes together at the end. So great job on the film.
Thank you. It means a lot.
So my first question is, where did the idea come from for this movie?
Well, for this movie specifically, it's kind of funny. I wish I had like a more inspirational story for where this idea came from, but it's really the right person saw the movie and assumed that we had been wanting to make a feature based off the Jester for years, and we didn't. Not because we didn't want to, but just because we'd never considered the Jester to be like worthy of filling out a 90-minute feature film. He was kind of created for the short films as like an urban legend almost. That's how we wanted to portray him.
Mhm.
But to fill that out for 90 minutes, it's like, well, Michael Dougherty already made Trick or Treat. Like, how do you top that kind of like Halloween flavored urban legend kind of thing? And we tried when we challenged ourselves, and we said, you know what, let's do this. Let's figure out what a Jester feature is. And we started writing that script and realized we were given 2 weeks to come up with a treatment. And after 7 days of working on that outline, which dealt a lot with like Jester lore and Jester rules and Halloween stuff, and we were like, this idea kind of sucks, doesn't it? And just kind of started asking ourselves questions about like, what do we care about as storytellers? Not what do we think other people are going to care about.
Right.
And the Jester just works better as kind of an ingredient, like a mysterious ingredient rather than a pure focus for us. I just think he's any answer you could come up with as to like backstory for the Jester has been done already for, you know, Pennywise and the Babadook and things like that. It's just like, what could we say about him that's compelling at all? Why not focus on the characters instead? And so that's what we did, and we really tried to make the characters compelling enough that when bad things happen to them, you don't want them to be fodder for the Jester. You want them to pull through. So we kind of constructed the story out of necessity, but also out of like, this is our first feature. What would we want to see?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the direction we took it in.
Yeah, and I think you kind of resonated too, because I like the whole aspect. I like the whole story. The fact that you have these two sisters who never met each other, and somehow, you know, the actions of one of them was like the beginning of the Jester showing up, and you know, and how he connects to both of them in some mysterious way.
Right.
And I like the relationship between the two sisters because it's kind of like one wants to get along with the other one. The other one's not quite sure if she can trust her yet, you know, because of the actions of their father. And
Right.
I think that helped drove the film. I feel like in the way the Jester was like the demonic spirit of the dad, like in the opening. I feel like it's like the bad conscience of the dad because of his actions. That's how I envisioned it in a way when I was watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were coming up with it's something that I heard Lee Wanell say in the like director commentary for The Invisible Man, which like made me feel so much better, where he was like, anytime an artist tells you like they go into something with like a fully constructed theme and thesis in mind for a movie, they're probably lying. They probably went into it trying to make something and they found that stuff along the way. And I was like, oh, duh. Like maybe, you know, it's if you're trying to write a story just like, I'm never going to make something as compelling as like Mean Streets or Taxi Driver or something like that. And it's It's like, well, you don't have to start with the most theme. You can find that in the story, and finding that about the Jester and learning that, oh, the Jester now, and kind of pulling a little bit from those short films is kind of this like representation of the negative thoughts and feelings we have, whether they are anger or grief or guilt or jealousy or your lack of self-worth, things like that. Whatever those negative feelings are, the Jester is kind of a representation of that, and how we can a lot of the times let those negative feelings, we can give into those because it's easier a lot of the time. And we see kind of the more our characters give into those negative thoughts and feelings and emotions, the more it hurts those around them. And the Jester as an entity is able to zero in on those exact things that you hate about yourself and pull on those threads. And that was kind of what we ended up finding through the story.
Yeah, and of course, with a horror movie, you got to have some great kills in this movie. This one has some fantastic like kills, and I like that it starts out tame, and then it progresses. That's what I really liked. Like, the first death is just a hanging, and I like how it was done, where he's like, it's like he's controlling the movements. I think that's like what I really found interesting. Like, I feel like the Jester was a cross of, if like no one saw the short films, like I never saw the short films. But I saw the Jester as a cross between Pennywise and Art the Clown from Terrifier.
Right.
Just a look in the way he makes people do things, like he controls them. But I gotta say, what my favorite death is, and thankfully I don't have to really spoil it that much because it's midway. It's the cop's decapitation scene. I absolutely loved it. I just like and what he did afterwards. I was like actually laughing at one point. I was like that's awesome. I love it. Like, what was it like working with like the special effects team on this one and getting these awesome deaths on the screen?
Yeah, that's the twofold. It was difficult, like coming up with the horror elements, the more visceral horror elements, because one, we never knew what Terrifier was or who Art the Clown was when we made the 2016 short, and then of course all the comparisons came forward, and we were just like, what is this? And we looked into it, and Art the Clown is its own thing, Terrifier is its own thing. It's very, very different from what we wanted to do.
Right.
And we didn't, there is a place for those kind of things, but we didn't want to make the Jester into like a slasher. And our goal always with the Jester was, let's make him weird. Like, what's the weirdest thing we could do? And pitching like the cop thing, where it's like, instead of just removing the head and it's this like gnarly like tear and blood and the guy dies and everything, it's like, what if he just disappears his head and the guy's just maybe still alive? it was things like that that's always like, what's the weird little twist that we can do that is not necessarily gory, but like just like strange and unsettling. And like with the cop scene, it's like you can't help but laugh at a certain point because it is
it's a fun, I would call it a fun kill basically, because it's not meant to be taken seriously, but it's like, you're not going to see like geysers of blood. You just see like a stump. That's all you see. And then the fact that he's not only frigging the cop out, but in the way I saw, like he was dancing with the headless cop. That's what cracked me up.
Yeah. And then working in terms of the special effects, it's difficult because we are so low budget that trying to come up with compelling sequences, but also achievable sequences at our level is difficult. And they've been doing headless gags for 100 years now in film. So we figured we could probably pull off something like that. And Jason Baker, actually, maybe the coolest guy I've ever met, is the guy who he designed and fabricated the Jester mask. He's also the guy who did the grabber mask for the Black Phone.
Oh wow.
And he made us that stump in very short notice. And it was one of those things where it's like, you get the professional to do it, and he just makes it super simple and it just works. It's a thing that the actor could wear over his head and we had a much bigger shirt for the actor to put on. And yeah, it's we coming from like a short film, like making our own little shorts on no money. It's kind of, you're used to that, like we don't have resources, so how are we going to achieve this kind of thing?
Right.
And shooting around the limitations is always immensely stressful, but it is that part of like the problem solving of filmmaking that is so kind of addicting,
So
that makes you want to do it
yeah.
again.
So compared to the short films, how long did shooting take on the actual feature film?
If I remember correctly, the shorts always took around like 3 to 5 days to shoot each one, and the feature in total took 17 days. The principal photography was 14 days, and then we flew back a little while later to add some additional Jester scenes into the movie, and that was an additional 3 days.
Yeah.
So 17 days to shoot a 90-minute feature.
Well, kudos has to go out to Michael Sheffield, and I understand that he came up with this story for you because I'm telling you, I mean, I think if this movie does well enough, he's gonna, and the Jester, I think, is gonna join some of these horror icon, like horror
Yeah.
icons, like Art the Clown, and I could definitely see the Jester like coming up as an icon because just the stuff he did, make not only making control things, but one of my favorite scenes is where he actually pretends to kill himself in one scene, and I was just like, I was not expecting it, and
Yeah.
and that was just mind blowing. The stuff he pulls off in this, I feel like he needs to, like, he's gonna be one of these underrated horror icons. Like who's gonna be your favorite horror character? And I'm hoping people will say the Jester is definitely one that's underrated after they see this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you say that, because I was so happy that, one, and Mike's my best friend, so getting to work with my best friend on my feature is uh, a wonderful privilege. But also, I don't want anybody else to play the Jester. He's the Jester in the shorts, and there's something about his performance that just, that's what it like. I don't want somebody's interpretation of the Jester. I just want the Jester. Just give me the Jester. The Jester is Mike, and that's that. And him and I both have worked so much on trying to develop what the character is, and more importantly, what he is not, that there are moments like the first time Emma sees him on the sidewalk when she's walking down, he's standing there by the light,
Yeah.
like lamp post, and originally he was just going to be standing there like he always is, straight legs and just kind of facing her. And I was like, I went up to Mike before we started shooting that, and I was like, it's just what he always does, like so far in this feature, that's all he's doing is he's standing like that. What else can we do? And Mike's just like, what if I wasn't facing her? What if I just turned around and was like casually looking at nothing and just had a different body language? Or when he walks away from her after her and the store clerk see him out the front window, and originally he just walked down the sidewalk, and I radioed the second AD and had her give the radio to Mike, and I was like, it just needs something else for you to walk. And he did a little thing where he was like, okay, flipped the cane up around his shoulder and just like put his hand in his pocket and walked down the street. And it's like, that's it. Like, that's the Jester. It's just
That's
whatever,
perfect. Yeah,
whatever
it brings something. Yeah, and I feel like it brought something fresh to it. Like, you don't,
Yeah.
every time you mention it, every time you see a slasher or something like that, they just stare right at them, and
Yeah.
like it's been done to death. And I like the fact that you made him do other stuff, like walk away and do all that. I think that's like the smartest move ever, because that brings something new and fresh to the slasher, or to the genre, in terms of, the stalker, or the slasher type who just stares at you. It's just like everyone's at one point gonna be like, you know what, will they just stop staring at him and do something else? And once they see this,
Right.
oh, it's about time something else happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And thinking about, the icons who we all love are, like Michael Myers or Jason. It's like, those guys are so serious. They take themselves so seriously, and the Jester doesn't. But the fun part of the fun and part of the frightening thing I feel about the Jester is that he is unpredictable. He is so kind of fun and lovable until suddenly he's not. And it's like the Jester doesn't understand. For him, there is no line between an innocent but lame close-up magic trick and something grotesque and terrible that takes a man's head off. Like to him, they are the same trick, and he wants the audience, which a lot of time he's doing it for himself, his own amusement. He just wants to have fun with what he's doing.
Exactly. And I'm hoping people will see this. I know it's going to come out tomorrow in select theaters for sure. And
You know,
if this goes well, man, I would love to see the Jester in another feature film, like a sequel. I would love to see him come back at some point. Is that something that's possibly in the works as of now, or is you going to see how this one does first?
well, that if it were up to me, absolutely, I would. I just as a creative, you always want a second try,
Yeah.
and this being the first feature and the first time for so many different things, I want to, knowing a little bit more now, I want to do it again, and I want to give this character and these characters more. I want to give everybody a second chance, and yeah, I definitely, yeah, like I said, if it were up to me, I would definitely say yes.
Yeah, I would. I mean, and like I said, like you mentioned it, bring them back, bring the characters, bring the
Yeah,
system back, and have them go, because we don't really get that anymore. These horror sequels, they get like now they have like new lead characters, and it's just like,
right.
okay, that's fine, but I don't think when's the last side we have Laurie Strode in Halloween, we had Sally Hardesty returning for last year's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we haven't had
Yeah,
something like I call it the Tommy Jarvis trilogy of Friday the 13th. 4,
right.
5, and 6 all revolved around Tommy versus Jason. I would love
Yeah,
to see the two sisters again against the Jester and seeing
yeah,
what else they can pull off. That's what I'm thinking.
yeah. It is absolutely a question that you ask yourself when thinking about more stories. Is their story done? Because if it is, you leave it alone and you focus on something else. But if it's not, what is the natural progression of what came before, and what more do you have to say about it? So those are important questions to ask, and it's not worth bringing the characters back unless you have more to say. And
Exactly.
I think we do.
Yeah, it sounds like you do. Well, everyone, check out the Jester. It's going to hit select theaters tomorrow and then on digital on Tuesday. And guys, I'm recommending this. This is definitely a great movie to check out. You're going to be amazed at some of the not only kill scenes, but the performance of Mike as the Jester is just mind blowing. And Colin, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk about it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
All right, we take care and have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.